you beat a boss and you see a coffin over on the edge of this waterfall, and you go over by the coffin and it says press Y to get in coffin, and you get in the coffin
What?
and a cutscene happens and you fall over the edge of the waterfall and you're all of a sudden in a new area.
Whoa.
So this Dark Souls and Soulborne games and Elden Ring especially, you have to have a completionist RPG mentality to find everything in it.
Hello, and welcome to the bottom of the internet. This is another Dead Pixel. I don't have anything planned for what I would normally say here. We're a podcast about video games, as you probably know. So today here we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We actually have a guest, one of my good friends, Devin. I wanted to bring him on because he has had a chance to play a really massive amount of Elden Ring. So here today, I just wanted to do a deep dive. Also, as usual, here with me is my good friend and co-host, Joe. So Joe, would you say hi to everybody?
How's it going, everyone? Yeah, so this is ADP After Hours. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Or the Elden Ring exclusive, special. There you go.
Yeah. And then Devin, would you say hi to the people out there?
Sure. Hey, my name's Devin. Yeah, Nick makes it say that I don't have much of a life, putting in a lot amount of Elden Ring, but I played my fair share, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So we're just gonna get right into it. I mean, I guess I'll talk about a little bit about what I've played, and then Joe, you can kind of go on with a little bit of what you played, and then Devin, we're gonna just kind of let you like run with it. So I've actually gotten to get through about 17 hours. But after hearing you, Devin, and Josh talk about the other night, I was kind of like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Like, it's just like I've played some Souls games, but not really to completion. So I've just kind of run around exploring, not really doing a whole lot of things that really get me a lot of experience points. So I wanted to bring you on, but I've killed a few of the minor bosses. I think I killed, I don't even remember his name, but he's a boss that sits out in front of one of the elder trees.
Yeah, an Elden Guardian.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're called.
Yeah, so I got one of those, and then I got some of the minor bosses, and I'm kind of just rolling around, just figuring it out. But so yeah, that's pretty much all that I've been able to do. And Joe, I think, has gotten a little bit further along. He's played several hours, a few hours more, or at least maybe a few hours less than me, but done more important things, I think.
Yeah, so I've been recently pouring some more time in, and then last night after we recorded the podcast, I ended up playing a few extra hours, and next thing I know, it's like 3 a.m. and my kid's gonna wake me up at like 4:30, and sure enough, he did. So I'm running on like an hour and a half of sleep. So it's been really good today.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally worth it.
Hey, we just lost you. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
You're back now.
OBS has been acting really funky with me,
You're-
and I don't know why.
It's like clockwork now. It's it just screws up. So like his mute button will magically turn on, and he'll have to, so, and it's backwards. So like I'll not be able to hear him, and if he turns it off, it's messed up. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Anyways, besides that, I ended up. So I played. Had to re-roll my character because I was not comfortable playing. I chose samurai in the beginning. The armor looked the best, so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll roll with that. And I was having an okay time. What little I've played in the past was I did a little bit of uh, Souls 3, Dark Souls 3, and then I did Bloodborne. I did more Bloodborne. Got into kind of was getting in the rhythm of it, but I knew that I was gonna have to pour in a lot of time and effort, and I just couldn't afford to do that. so I had to bail on that. What I did with this is did the samurai for about 9 hours, roughly 8 9 hours, something. I think it was like something like that. Ended up realizing that I'm having a good time, but it's just taking me forever, and I can't afford to do that. So I had heard from some friends that going mage in Souls games have always generally been uh, a little more forgiving. So that's what I ended up doing. Is I did an astrologer, and I've put in about 11 hours into it. So overall, 20 hours into the game whereabouts. And yeah, last night since I got to the point where I'm like, I'm done figuring this out for myself. I'm gonna go ahead and look at some guides, and I just made it way easier for myself. I followed there's a YouTuber out there by ESO, and that dude does a really good step by step. Like, if you're going to get some certain items, he'll do all the waypoints, like little dots on the way, so you can. It's almost paint by numbers. He makes it real easy to follow. Other guys will just be like, okay, just zip on over to the upper corner and do your thing, and but he'll actually do waypoints and mark on the way and show you extra, uh, spots to save and stuff like that. So it's actually really helpful. I ended up killing a dragon last night that was just sleeping, minding its own business. It was up in the northeast side of the map, and that one drops like 75k runes. And then if you use the pickled fowl's foot, the golden one, it gives you a 30% bonus. So you're netting like 97 k of runes, and so that power leveled me. And then I decided to fight some bosses. I've been getting my teeth kicked in for the longest while against Loretta, because I was trying to get that. She drops a really good bow, or like a spell, and also around that same area is where you get the Lazuli glintstone sword, which is in the northwest side of the map, all the way up there. And yeah, she's just kicking my teeth in the entire time. I finally beat her, and I was really satisfied by that, actually. Then I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I might as well progress the actual story. Went to fight Margaret, and I'm like, I just completely steamrolled. I'm like, oh wow, this is so much easier now. So yeah, that's about the gist of it. I've made it about that far in, and I'm currently just in that first castle halfway through, actually completing it. And that's where I stopped.
Which dungeon is Loretta in?
Oh, Loretta. Okay, so if you go to the map and you go all the way north, northwest. So it's where where the giant is, the giant blacksmith.
Yeah. Oh, so you're right beside Ronnie's Rise.
So
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't know. No, I don't know any of the
Okay.
names of the places.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just ended up just north of that, where you have to, you get rained on by like the light spells.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on like the second floor or something like that, up the stairwell, and yeah, around all the chairs surrounding the reflective pool, and she was just kicking the shit out of me.
She's the one on horseback.
I'm sorry, was that?
Was she on horseback?
Yeah, she was on horseback.
Okay. Yeah, that is a really important area of the game. I mean, if you want to do 100% completion, that whole area and the area beyond it is where Ronnie's Rise is, and Ronnie's the first witch that you come in contact with.
Okay.
That gives you the
okay, that makes sense. It was the sisters. I just entered that area and I said like 3 sisters or something like that.
Exactly.
And I was wondering if it had anything relation to do with the witch in the beginning.
If you keep talking to the giant blacksmith in that area that you come into, there's the false wall right there, and
Yep.
you break through that false wall and talk to the giant. The giant will give you a little bit of information about the area. And Ronnie's actually the witch that at the beginning of the game was sitting on the wall and gave you the summoning bell.
Right. Okay.
I think she introduced herself as Rena at the beginning.
Oh.
That's a pretty important, and Ronnie probably has one of the best side quests of the entire game.
Yeah, I remember you were telling me that. So like, let's go through like kind of like your the gist of what you've experienced, and kind of like the hours and kind of different I don't know, stuff that you think is like important to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, I started off I had about 10 days off of work before I started my new job, so I was able to dive in fully on Elden Ring right when it came out. For first impressions, it's top 5 game for me. All my favorite games are all role playing RPGs.
You mean
world.
like top 5 all time?
Yeah, it's my top 5.
Wow. Okay.
Those are just bulletized. They're not in any order. That's hard to do, but Elden Ring's definitely up there. I went with the Vanguard initial setup, sword, kind of balanced character with a shield, but dropped the shield within at least like 10 hours of gameplay. The shields like if you play never any Soulborne games, the shield's kind of useless.
Yeah,
And
like I kind of figured that fairly well. Probably after about like 10 hours, like you say, I was like, I just get destroyed whenever I hold it up, and I'm not good enough to like parry with it.
yeah,
So it's like just throw fire or dodge.
yeah, and
When I was doing the samurai, I was doing that unsheath skill, so I couldn't. I was doing two-handed anyway, so the shield didn't matter for me when I was doing samurai as well.
I also looked up a few guides just to direct my way. I found the twin blade. The twin blade's a very important early starting weapon. Has a good combination attack, and it's one of the better weapons in the game. You can find it pretty early on in the first area. And
I was gonna say, isn't also the twin blade? I thought it was a two-handed. There's two swords if you beat the very first boss that you fight, the one that you're supposed to lose against. Don't they drop like a two-handed or two swords?
yeah, I think so. You could eventually go back to that area and defeat that boss.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You'll eventually go back there in the game, or you can go back there in the game. The twin blades found in I think a catacomb area, but no, it's a spear with two sides. So
okay.
yeah, it's just like a long staff with a spear on both ends. But I played with that for a while. Melee character is a lot more rewarding in Elden Ring than a spellcaster.
I can see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah, your spellcasters are going to be able to clear dungeons like that. Just the difference now that I'm playing a spellcaster, I'm playing an astrologer as well, and I'm able to clear Godric's castle, in the first few tries. It's very easy to do knights and bigger enemies that generally like the death of melee characters harder than some of the bosses are very easy with spellcasters. I love the open world aspects of the game, and different than previous Soulborne games. I had a lot of issue with Godric at the very beginning, or Margit at the very beginning, and the cool thing about this game is if you have trouble with the character or with the boss, you just go to another area of the map and level up and progress there. I mean, right off the get-go, you could go, Lithuania, you could go up to Khalid, all the way up northwest, or northeast of Khalid, just at the very beginning of the game. So there's a lot of exploration, and exploration is important. Like you were saying that you haven't progressed the story, really, but that's a very important part of the game is exploring, because there's a lot of areas that you'll want to go to further on in the game to progress a certain quest line. But since you've already been there, you could just fast travel there without spending, hours on horseback just trying to go across the world.
Try to figure it out. Yeah, after a while, I was like, there's just so much. I kind of just wanted to see how far I could go before the game would bounce me back. And you can go super far, like far north and far south, and the enemies are not really any tougher. Like they're kind of the same sort of level. And I was surprised by that. I was like, dang, I'm far from like home. But once I got down there and I had to fight one or two, I was like, oh, well, these guys are, they're a little bit tougher or whatever, but they're not so bad. I can knock them out. And so I've collected a whole bunch of stuff, and it does help now that I'm like, okay, because now that I'm I've got all this exploration done, I'm able to piece things together really quickly, because it's like, oh, this is back from there, so I can just warp and do it and come back.
And you said you went down to Nakastella City, right? Underground?
I did.
Okay.
And got bounced out real quick, but yeah.
So, but that's a tougher area, but that's also an important area for some of the side quests. And for me in games, anytime underground areas or like dark areas, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I just, I know it's an important part of the game, but for me, like my game style and everything is, I'm ready to get out of that area. I'm ready to get back to the surface.
Like, why is that? Just like some kind of video game claustrophobia, or just you don't find it interesting, or what?
No, it's interesting. There's probably a good like 20 hours I spent underground during my first playthrough of Elden Ring, just because Ronnie's quest is very important underground, and there's some other I spent a lot of time just exploring because there's obviously sections of underground that you could get to, but I would just walk the whole map, like how the heck do I get to this area? And I had to eventually look up a guide and realize that it's as story progression, certain things open up. In Elden Ring, like you said, you could travel virtually all the way east. You could travel all the way west, and you could travel all the way south. But the northern area is cut off for story progression, and then part of the underground area is cut off for story progression. Which is, that's you could still spend 40, 50 hours down south in the starting area. Yeah. And I did the same thing on my second playthrough with Godric and Margit. I spent a lot of time fighting the bosses I knew were fairly easy, and playing against them. And by the time I finally went to Margit, I just steamrolled him. It was a very easy boss fight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was happy that I did it that way actually, because I knew a lot of people had a hard time with that particular boss, but because I ended up playing around in the world so much, and what my open world habits is like playing I play Far Cry. I've played most of the numbered Far Cry games, and I generally just unlock the map. That's always one of the first things I like to do. And so in this game, that's pretty much what I did. Was I just beelined it and just saw a bunch of neat things, but I'm like, holy hell, what is that? And then I just ran by it because I'm like, I'm not stopping to look at the scenery because I'm just about to get murdered. And then I grabbed as many of the fragments as I could just to expand it. And I was like, all right, now I got a better understanding of the scope of this game. And I'm like, this game's flipping huge. It's really impressive. And there's a lot to this game that I like more than the other Souls games. And this is the first time I've actually felt like I would like to continue. Unfortunately, I probably won't because I don't have that much time.
Yeah, it is massive. And like even from like the very beginning, whenever you're in character creation, like the first time I was in there, I was like, dang, I want to play. I mean, maybe not all of them. The people in their underwear. I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to play that. But I guess that looks like a hardcore mode. But like the samurai, the astrologer, like one of the knights. I was like, dang, I would like to play, all three of these or 4 or 5 of these. And it's just like, I mean, there's just a lot of. It seems like there's a lot of like replay value with this game because you can go so far in it, and then every character seems to play pretty differently too.
And the starting characters aren't, as important as you might think they are. Like the starting character selection is just selecting starting attributes. The astrologers have like 18 faith, 17 faith, or
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I mean, by the end of the game, by the end of my first playthrough, I was about a level 140 or so, and my dexterity and intelligence and vitality were all above 40, 50.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter, like, because you're going to mutate your character so far beyond what those piddly little differences are.
All the starting character does is basically give you like maybe a 5-hour playtime jump start, because I think you don't start out as like a level 1. I think you start out as a certain level.
It was like 8 or 9, if I remember correctly. And so it gives you a slight build towards what you want. It gives you the equipment and some starting spells that would possibly help you out if you're wanting to aim for a style. And so, for example, the astrologer came with that glintstone, and I forget what the other one was, that blade, the blade or whatever, the wide attack. But I never used that one. I just used glintstone the entire time. And then I ended up getting like for when I eventually got the meteorite staff, I ended up getting the rock sling because those two go hand in hand. And when I fought Lazuli, I finally got that bow, that spell, but I actually forgot to equip it. And then when I went to fight Margit, I just completely just never used it, and I just used a rock sling the entire time.
Glintstone Pebble and the Rock Sling with the Meteorite Staff, those are both top tier spells. Like you can find those very early on, and Glintstone Pebble will just clear a whole dungeon for you, really.
Wow.
Glintstone Pebble, you'll find Nick at that vendor I was telling you about,
Oh
who's
yeah.
just northeast of that swamp, right in the beginning. So yeah, if you find her underneath after the pumpkin head battle, she'll sell
Oh,
Glintstone without.
Sorcerer Celine.
Yeah. See, like you're saying that that's like right pretty much in the opening area. I mean, I've kind of steered clear of the swamp for some reason. I've gone all around there, but I totally missed that like section.
Yeah, it's right when you follow the path. When you go up to the camp, head east from the first starting camp. Just that's north. Then you hit it east. When you hit the two giants towing the cart, roughly around that area, just north of them, there's a ruins, and then just to the east of that, you'll see like some grave markers or mausoleums. So if you went to the mausoleums, you've gone too far east. So you just go back to the ruins. There's a plant monster, real easy to kill, or at least for me because I was able to kill it from a distance. And then you go down a little, to an empty room, and that's where the pumpkin, uh, I don't know, Pumpkinhead Warrior or whatever he's at. I've seen him also one of his kind on a bridge when I was roaming the world. So there's those out there. He wasn't terrible, but I was a little underleveled when I fought him, and I pretty much built like a glass cannon. Is how I ended up marking myself up. So at like level 41, I have 40 int. I have 20 mind and 15 vigor.
Oh,
So
see, I invest heavily into vigor. I mean, I think I'm about 10 hours into my next playthrough, and every other upgrade or every other maybe every 3 of my levels, I'm investing into vigor. As that some of the later bosses like General Radon and even further north like Millennia, those bosses will absolutely wreck you with a single hit.
Oh yeah. So
And
you really need that health.
you need vigor. I mean that's pretty important. Unless you're completely glass cannon and you could kill those bosses in 2 strikes while avoiding. But some of those, especially like the Lord of Blood, I forget his name. He was the very last boss that I fought, optional boss, before I started the game over, and he releases like some blood loss that will erase your whole life.
wow.
Very instant or almost near instantly.
Because like you'd have like so little if you don't go
Yeah.
hard on vigor, then it'll just drain you down if you hit you once with it.
Yeah.
Or is it like just a thing that you can't avoid?
There's portions of it that you can't avoid, or very difficult to avoid. I mean, a lot of people go into that battle with, or what I started to go into the battle with was like blood loss alleviation. It's those little pebbles that you eat the pebbles. It's an artifact or an item that you find, and it alleviates blood loss. But like if you have a high enough vigor, then you'll be able to survive that initial onslaught. And the same
Yeah.
thing with Millennia. Millennia does a lot of blood loss, and I fought her a good 20 times before I beat her. And when I did beat her, I died about 5 seconds after she did. And just luckily enough that she drops 420,000 runes. So it was just lucky. It was just lucky enough that the achievement came through. Her death fully happened before I died, and I was able to respawn and go back and pick up all my runes.
Well,
Nice.
that's super lucky.
So, okay, my bad. I made the mistake. I called the one person on horseback. I think I just recently said they were Lazuli. But Lazuli was the sword, the glintstone sword that's in the same area, but it was Loretta. And yeah, I ended up getting. That's when I realized the way I spec'd my character. I'm like, dude, I need to put more in vigor, but it's going to take me forever to do this. And so that's why I just bashed my face into that battle, and eventually I pulled out a win. And I only had my wolves at like they were only +1 or whatever, so they kind of ate through really quickly, and I kept on. I kept on screwing up with my rock sling because I'd try to keep enough distance, and then I'd end up hitting like the chairs that are surrounding that reflection pool or whatever, and so my own spells would not make it to her completely. So yeah, it took me quite a while, but what I did is I just made sure I used up all my runes because I'm like, this is going to be a hard battle cashed out all my runes, leveled up as best as I could, and then I just there's that spot right outside the door. I'm like, I just kept on running in and just be like, all right, let me just do this again.
So
Yeah.
a mistake I made early on with my melee character was trying to upgrade my weapon immediately once I had the smithing stones. But
Okay.
a good part about a difficult part about this games is smithing stones. You'll be able to find mines where you could find quite a bit of these, and you could find ball bearings that you give to the two-headed merchant within Round's Table, so you could actually buy smithing stones from there. But the bosses to get those smithing stones are sometimes incredibly difficult. So what I suggest as a melee character, you find a weapon that you want to use for the game, and you invest the smithing stones that you find into that weapon. So that's what I did. I upgraded my twin blade quite a bit at the beginning of my melee character, and I eventually found the moon veil, which is a katana. So, and immediately I was the moon veil is such an insanely powerful weapon. Like every few strikes, it inflicts blood loss, and then you'll just see 1/8 of the boss's health just disappear. It's a really fantastic weapon. It's fun to use, and I invested all my upgrade attributes into that weapon, and then I started investing into intelligence because intelligence scaled on the Moonville.
Yeah.
So that's why I was up to 40.
So how does weapon upgrading work? Because I thought that you can only make a weapon like +3. Is there other? It just goes on.
Yeah, there's there's smithing stones for regular weapons that you'll find.
Yeah.
And smithing stones will take it all the way up to, goodness, I think the original one goes. Yes, your smithing stones will go all the way up to about smithing stone 9, and then you have an ancient dragon smithing stone.
Right.
That maxes it out. But the weapon itself will be probably +20 or so.
Oh dang. Okay.
But
I read something at the beginning of the game that was you can only make certain things +3. I could have sworn I read that. Maybe I'm crazy.
The original stone, the level 1 stone, will go up to 3, and then they goes by intervals of 3. So then when you go from 4, 5, and 6 on your that's stone level 2, and so you can tell the levels of your stones because it'll be in brackets at the end of it. So when you pick up a stone, and it'll say or even the runes, or the items that you pop to get runes, it'll say what level they are. So you might pick one up, a single item, and it'll say 4 at the end, which means it's more valued because it's a higher level. So that's that. I learned that when I tried, because I ended up trying to just level up the basic staff, just because I just wanted to try to, I was experimenting with it, and I realized that the starter staff is garbage, and so that's why eventually I had to just use. But when I found the meteorite staff, the scaling on that one, you can't level that up at all, and that one has an S tier scaling, and that's actually the scaling is almost more important than the level. And eventually, when you do level up your weapons, the scaling does increase, because I was able to level up the Lazuli glintstone sword. I leveled that up to I think it started at a D scaling, and then I got it up to a B. So
yeah, and the scaling attributes. So I feel like a lot of melee characters want to just throw every upgrade point they have into just strength, but like you said, the scaling is almost more important than anything else. Like you'll realize once you start upgrading, once you reach a certain level, your right hand armament on the upgrade isn't going up anymore. So what you're investing in strength is really just physical defense attributes. You're not investing in, actually killing the enemy.
It's got a diminishing return on it after a certain point.
It almost seems that way. So I got up to about level 40 on my strength attributes, just to be able to, try out a new weapon. And I started investing everything just into that scaling, intelligence, dexterity for the Moonveil. And I would also increase into my stamina as much as I could, just because, as the game progresses, you're going to find better and better armor, and some of that armor is pretty heavy. And as a melee character, you never want to go into a heavy load. You always want to stay around a medium load.
Yeah.
Yeah, never fat roll.
Yeah, I was fat rolling for a while, and I mean, I didn't really find anything very hard, but I had I started out with a, what do you call it, a short sword, and then I wanted to try a broadsword, so I leveled my strength up enough for that, and then I was like, I think my roll is a little bit different. It seems kind of slow and doesn't go very far, and then like, I mean, like so like that only so that happens after you're 75%
Yeah.
max. I was like, dang, I thought it would be like, I don't know, Fallout or something where your encumbrances, you know, only activates whenever you hit that max number. But no, it's a little bit more strict than that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up finding out the like certain things like that. It's one of the things you find out the hard way, right? Because I played for about 4 hours before I realized you can run. I always I was I was always rolling forward, but I'm like, and then eventually I just held the button. And I'm like, oh, you do go a little bit faster. Okay, I felt really dumb.
Yeah, and I don't know. I played the game for a while before I even found out you could get the summoning bill. By going back to the church and picking up the summoning bill for ashes.
oh yeah,
So I mean, there's some aspects to the game that From Software doesn't hold your hand, which I really like about the company, and it's kind of a discovery as you go along. Um, I talked one of my friends into playing the game, and he played for about 4 hours and then got a refund on it
oh dude,
because he at the beginning of the game he went out into the open area and kept trying to fight
that
the
guy.
Tree Knight Sentinel.
Oh dude, I still can't beat that dude.
I didn't beat
I beat
him,
him last night. That was really good.
I didn't beat him until I was a lot more leveled up. But immediately, what you know from like playing some Soulborn games is there's some enemies that you don't challenge head on. You go around them. You run by them. I mean, I essentially run by every dragon I come across right now in my second playthrough, just because I'm not high enough to take them out.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing I was gonna say earlier is that the game is really cool because it allows such wildly different types of play. Like we've all three, played a good portion of the game and had totally different experiences. And not just because of the kind of characters that we picked, but like the paths that we decided to go down and choosing to explore this area more or that area more. And then like also the you've got to, I mean, 4 hours, I guess if I'm trying to think of a case where that would make sense.
I think it makes perfect sense actually, because it's one of those things that I don't if you like this game or not right off the bat. I personally it's one of those things that I like these games, but I just don't have the time for them, and I know I don't have the resolve for the dedication.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who's played was it Demon Souls 3 and Dark and Bloodborne like the obscene amount of times, and to the point where they've played through like 20 plus times, carrying over their leveling up and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's awesome. I just don't like, if I was in high school again, or maybe if I was, I think if I had that extra free time and no responsibilities, that this would be totally my game. But that's why I'm like, I melee, it's rewarding. But if you don't know what game you're getting into, you will get your face kicked in, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm out. So I don't blame that dude for bouncing.
I don't blame him either. I mean, it comes down to like what type of gamer you are. For a Soulborn game is the gamer that likes to be challenged, that likes to explore, that doesn't like the Ubisoft crowding of the screens and
kind of hand holding. I mean, like there's definitely a place for those kind of games. There's definitely like a really cool aspect of like just like sitting down after a long day and playing a game that kind of just tells you sort of what to do. You can kind of just ride along.
A casual game. And that but what's great about Elden Ring is Elden Ring incorporates, like, since it's so big and since there's so many areas, so much stuff to do, it does have a casual aspect to it. Like, if you want to burn an hour, you could just burn an hour riding horseback to a new area, discovering some secrets. And I almost beat the game around 80 hours. I reached the final boss. I died to him about 4 times, or I guess it was around level 80. I reached the boss, died to him a few times, and I was like, okay, I'll go to another area. And all of a sudden I discovered not 1, not 2, but 4 new areas that were just as big as like, Khalid. They're just as big as some of the larger portions of the map. Absolutely massive new areas, that dungeons and actually bosses. Like if you notice and you start reading and listening to Gideon the All-Knowing within Roundtable, like he'll tell you about a whole bunch of shard bearers, but as you notice, you only encounter a few of those shard bearers, like Radon and so on, and you have to search out those other shard bearers. They're not essential to the game's completion, but they're out there, and there's certain areas you go to. I mean, like you beat a boss and you see a coffin over on the edge of this waterfall, and you go over by the coffin and it says press Y to get in coffin, and you get in the coffin and a cutscene happens and you fall over the edge of the waterfall and you're all of a sudden in a new area.
Wow.
So this Dark Souls and Soulborne games and Elden Ring especially, you have to have a completionist RPG mentality to find everything in it. Like get on your horseback, go around an area. Don't skip certain right turns or left turns just because you want to save some time. Like go around the whole area and look around, and you'll find some amazing stuff.
Yeah, like it seems like it wants you to be thorough.
There's some bosses that I would have never found if I didn't have to look for a guide. Like there's a certain dragon boss that requires it's an achievement, and you have to like run to the edge of this cliff, look down, see a ledge, drop down to that ledge, jump over a whole bunch of things, get down here, and then lay down in a certain crater. And another cutscene happens and that dragon arrives. So there's a lot of things to the game that are hidden. Like From Software could have easily like did a streamline approach to the narrative. Like they did all this work. They want you to experience all this work, but instead they, it's that old nature of like, Mario 64 where you hop on top of the castle and all of a sudden you get Yoshi in a whole nother little area.
Yeah.
Like it's that whole essence of a secret to the game that you have to unlock.
Yeah. Like it's something that's not really done as, I don't know, it's not done as well, I don't think, by anybody else, because the thing that is so kind of captivating about it is that they do it all through gameplay. They don't hint at certain things by like characters like sort of spelling it out for you or anything like that. It's like, hey, there's this thing and you could have missed it, and a lot of people did if they only played like 50 hours of it. Like if they only kind of cut through to the end, there's a lot that they like would miss, and that's true for a lot of games. But for some reason, it feels different with this one, I think.
I mean, half your playing time in this game comes from like optional side quests and optional bosses. You could easily miss all that and just go straight through the narrative of the game. But I mean, there's a lot of important aspects, and some of the hardest bosses were the optional ones, like Godric, Radon is a required boss. General Radon. He rides around on a little pony.
Okay.
Is
it funny or is it terrifying?
He has like some gravitational powers. Yeah. If you start reading into the lore a little bit, he kind of like holds the stars back and he protects the earth. Like you'll see cutscenes where Melania, she's a woman with a knight's mask that covers her the top half of her face.
Oh yeah.
And she fights against Radon, who's the guy with the giant red hair from the trailers. And they fight. He gets inflicted with like blood rot and starts losing his mind. And he has all these different powers, and he's an incredibly hard boss. You can summon like 10 NPCs to help you out with them. Whoa. But they'll all die. I guarantee.
Just get destroyed.
They'll all get destroyed.
So I haven't looked into it, but I know as I was looking up some just basic guides for myself since like towards the end, since I'm like, yeah, I know I'm pretty much done with my time, but I kept on seeing popped up like apparently according to the titles of quite a few different YouTube videos, there's apparently a couple ways you can cheese him, I guess. So I'm kind of curious to see, because I've heard him mentioned by other streamers about being this like really tough boss. And I've also heard his name's pronounced. People weren't sure exactly how to pronounce it, and then I looked at it and I saw Rodan from like Godzilla,
Mm.
and so that's what in my internally that's like, you're Rodan from now on, because I love Godzilla and like I enjoy that name more than So I'm like, you're Rodan.
I guarantee I'm misspelling or mispronouncing probably like every one of these deities,
Yeah.
but I only
sure.
understand it. I don't much like watching like YouTube videos of something. I want to read it out on a list. That's just how I learn.
Okay.
I like to read versus watching a video or something like that. But yeah, I found him incredibly difficult because I had a little katana that I was going up to fight him with on my horseback. So I had to get very close to initiate any type of damage on him. And I finally getting down to half health, and like a giant meteor comes from the sky, and just if you're not dodging or you're not riding on the back of your horse, boom, dead instantly. There's some incredibly difficult aspects to that. And Melania was really hard. But
I was gonna ask, who's your favorite boss to fight? Like, just you thought it was like the most. I mean, maybe it was difficult, or maybe it wasn't, but you just thought it was like a really cool fight.
Rodan. I'll start saying it that way. He was I think he was probably one of the better boss fights that I've ever had in a game.
Oh wow!
Just the way they set it up, and you're not going to learn about his entire backstory, but a lot of it makes sense. Like, he rides on this little horse, which looks comic, but when you understand that he has like some gravitational powers, uses gravitational magic, you could understand how he could actually ride on a tiny little horse like that.
Yeah, it's in the lore.
Yeah, it's in the lore, and he's seen like his character has a little bit of character and valor to him. The whole idea of like going to a festival that celebrates his death. Like you go to this festival, it's like the festival's about to start. Are you ready for the festival to start? And you select yes, and then all these NPCs are out here getting ready to go out and try to fight General Rodan. And he's probably my favorite, just because of the little cutscene entry and everything like that. And there's other bosses that were there's a serpent king boss in the Volcano Manor that has a really cool sideline quest. You could reach him two different ways. You could either do a whole bunch of assassination missions for the manor, or you could find the false wall and go down there yourself. And
Cool.
he was a pretty cool boss too, and his lore is pretty nifty.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so I've heard a lot of people talk about this being it's kind of divisive. Some people are saying this is the most accessible Souls game, and other people are like, no, dude, it's not. It's almost it's like a switch and bait. They like we're tricking you. You think it's this the most simple, but actually it's like, no, it's only simple because you can move around. But other than that, it's actually equally difficult, if not harder, than the other games. I don't know. I want to know what your opinion was on this one.
So I'm actually going to have to go back, and I really, now that I've played this and completed this game and had that satisfaction of completing a Soulsborne game, I want to go back and play the other, because I played every Dark Souls and Bloodborne on the PlayStation, but I haven't played Sekiro, right?
Dude,
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
Sekiro, yeah.
Sekiro.
You ought to play Sekiro.
I haven't played that yet, but I know I can complete the game now. I can complete a Soulsborne game, but I think it's more accessible than the other ones. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if you make it all the way up to Margit right at the very beginning, and all of a sudden you die instantly to Margit, you don't have to keep facing him to progress the game. You could turn around and go to Khalid. You could go to south and clear Castle Morn, or you could do a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, eventually you'll have to go back to him, but as you said, like, a lot of people had a lot of trouble with him, but then you come back power leveled and you could steamroll the guy. So I think it's more accessible in that way.
Like, I guess I shouldn't be so quick to say it definitely is, because I played Demon Souls back when it came out a long time ago, and probably played about 30 hours of that. And then I missed all the other Soulsborne games, but I did play Sekiro fairly recently, and I mean, Sekiro is brutal. Like, Sekiro is the hardest game I've ever played that didn't have, I don't know, like a easier difficulty. It's really, really tough. And like, I played about 10 hours of it, and I didn't get very far at all. I think I beat like one boss, like one like minor boss. Um, so I was like really afraid that this game was going to be kind of like that. I figured it wouldn't be quite so hard, but early on I was really um, passive and just defensive about everything that I would do. Um, and it wasn't until probably like 3 or 4 hours in where I was like, okay, this game's not gonna just pop out and kill me like quickly. So it's definitely more accessible than Sekiro, but I don't know about the other Dark Souls games. I guess maybe it is. I don't know.
I think just the option to go to different areas, the option to do just about anything that you want in the game makes it more accessible. But if you're a gamer that plays Call of Duty Search and Destroy and occasionally plays Fortnite or PUBG or something like that, this might not be the game for you. If you're a Mass Effect KOTOR fan or something like that, and you enjoy the narrative drive of a video game, then this also really isn't the game for you, because you have to search for the narrative within. Yeah. It's not something that you're gonna, at the end of the game, you could either know all about the story or you will not know what the heck happened except that you're sitting on the throne.
Yeah, see, I had the hard time with that because I love a narrative driven game. It's hard for me to play something for like any of the loot games. So Diablo, for example, Diablo 3, I've played that one a handful of times, and I always restart it for a while. I just can't get into it because the story just isn't there. I need something to propel me forward, and so that was one of the reasons why, why does your dude want to be the Lord? He wants to rule it all. Like, because I mean, it's, I don't know. It was really hard for me to get into that. But like, if I just ignore that and just try to murder for the murder's sake and just to get better, I'm like, okay. But like, at least in the other games, I found that once you got good, at least you could have fun with the fashion souls bit. And I'm like, the fashion souls here sucks. I'm like, I was not really impressed with, at least with what I ended up seeing. And that's why, like, when I picked the samurai, I'm like, dude, the samurai armor is dope. I'm gonna go with that. And then all the other armors and stuff like that, at least for maybe late game stuff, is really cool. But a lot of the stuff I ended up seeing was just like, no, dude, this is all. Yeah,
so there was like a solid 10 hours of gameplay where I was a fat soldier because it had the highest stats on it. I was ugly looking too. Like, there's a point where I actually had to change my mask because it was so ugly to look at, and I couldn't stand my character looking like that. And he had from other games, he had the fat soldier. It has the big pot belly on it, but it has really high stats on it. But some of the late game armor, you actually get General Rodon's armor at one point, so that's really cool armor. It has the big hair plume coming out the back, and I really enjoyed that one. And it looks
I've seen
really cool.
Spirits run by, like the shadows or whatever. I'm like, who the hell are you, and where did you get that thing?
Joe just wants Elden Ring to be a dating sim.
Yeah, it looks really badass. Like at the very end, when you have like General Rodon's armor on, and it's the end cutscene. But all my other favorite games, like Batman Arkham City, Fallout, and then Horizon Zero Dawn, and Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect 2, they're all narrative-based games, so which kind of makes Elden Ring the odd man out, where it's not a narrative-based game. I like the story. Some of those stories, like Knights of the Old Republic, was just amazing. Mass Effect 2 is one of the greatest games in my opinion, just because of kind of that storyline and the options. But there's no doubt that Dark Souls, the original Dark Souls, was one of the most influential games of our time, and
Yeah.
you could kind of see that. And I think Elden Ring will do that as well. You've seen a lot of software developers really complaining about the rankings or like the reviews of Elden Ring.
Like how so?
Like thinking it doesn't deserve such a high ranking and why their game didn't get such a high ranking.
Just recently, actually, speaking about Horizon, one of the people from Horizon team was complaining about trying to. They did a tweet or something. They did a jab at Elden Ring's side quest line, and I forget exactly how it was phrased. Essentially, they were shitting on it for one reason or another, and saying it was like how it wasn't that like structured. But the criticism for the New Horizon, Forbidden West, was that it's overly done. Like it's too much, as far as narrative and hand holding and stuff like that. So it was, I don't know, it's just that it seemed really weird. This dude just took a pot shot out of nowhere. So
some of the
people getting jealous. So.
Some of the Ubisoft developers they've taken pot shots at Elden Ring as well. But I mean, a lot of these companies don't get what the general gaming population wants, and they target specific clientele. Like Fortnite went through the Fortnite phase. It targets a specific clientele that enjoys like one game that lasts 20-30 minutes, and there's a developed winner at the end. But some of these, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I loved Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I loved Odyssey, but my epitome of side quest idea comes from The Witcher 3 with those side quests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I mean it's so stupid to me to take pot shots at a game that is so obviously a great game at the very least. It's like a great game. I don't know what its Metacritic rating is right now. I imagine it's probably like right at 9 or closer to 10 or something, but or closer to 100 or something. But it's it's just like people are talking about. I think Josh was saying that people are talking about this game maybe being the game of the generation, or of
I think that was me that said that
of the decade, or something. And I think it is early on to declare that, but I mean it would be pretty hard to imagine somebody coming along and doing something that much better with what we have. Like I could see somebody making another Elden Ring game that was like as good, but I think that in order to beat it in a discussion, you would have to go above and beyond, and I don't know if that's really possible or likely.
Well, I'm excited. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna say I'm excited for this next decade because Elden Ring did come out pretty early in the decade, and we saw that Dark Souls came out, 2011, and I think we could all agree like the last 10 years of video games have been pretty good. So I'm excited for the next decade. I'm hoping some of the software developers will see like the success that Elden Ring had. The massive open world, the lack of microtransactions and general stuff like that, and they'll take heed of it, and we'll get some great games out of it.
Yeah, the lack of microtransactions, I didn't even think about that. That's a huge blessing.
I mean,
so one of the things they did right, I think, was when you mentioned Ubisoft earlier, was I noticed it mid game was how they make the HUD, they make it slowly disappear. Only when you're in direct combat, or if you tap Y to see like where am I on my health, and or like how many potions do I got and stuff like that. You actually have to engage into that. But if not, if you just it'll just drift away, and you'll have the full screen just access, and it looks nice and clean. While a Ubisoft game like Far Cry or something like that will have 1,000,001 indicators on there. And I mean, I think gamers have been leaning towards that a little more recently. Rockstar did that with Red Dead 2. And they made if you chose to take away the HUD, then what would happen was they characters would just start describing things better. They'd be like, instead of following your map icon, like, go to this location, they would say, go follow this road, and when you hit the big tree, take a right. And they actually would explain themselves a little bit better. And a lot of people did that with Horizon 2, is they take away just so they can enjoy the view. So I think they did get a lot of things correct with Elden Rings. But the thing is, I'm going to play devil's advocate in a bit, and then just because I want to get your guys' take on some of this stuff.
Okay.
But with the Metacritic score, 95 for the PC, but the user score is 6.7. And
I saw 7.9 on PlayStation.
PS5, yeah, PS5 has the 7.9 for user, 96 on that one. PS4 is 6.7 as well. So I mean, it is very subjective. I'm going to say, in my opinion, the it's a bold claim to say game of the decade. I don't think it's anywhere near that. I think it's very well done. It's awesome, but the reason why, like, people saying the praises of how they thought Breath of the Wild was the most amazing thing ever, and I'm like, it's not that hot shit. But but it's like the Nintendo fanboys who are like, we haven't seen anything like this from a Zelda game. No shit, you haven't seen it from a Zelda game, because Zelda games are pretty mediocre. But finally they do something half decent, and everyone's like, it's on this pedestal. And I think it's because it's such a departure that it makes it that much stand out that much better. And I mean, 10 million sales just a couple days ago, they hit 10 million. They announced 10 million in sales. So obviously this is the best selling Souls game of all time.
I think that I think the player score being like what it is because of all the hype, of the game. I mean, like, I'm not really that much of a Soulsborne player, and I was, wrapped up in, like, I was like, I'm definitely going to get this game. So I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, this is like the hot game, right? And so they go and they get it. And then they're like, oh, this is just, I don't understand. I can't. And then they rate it, lower, which makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think there is a little bit of misconception going into the game, because I looked around when the game was first announced. I was like, is this going to be a Dark Souls game? Like, am I expecting something more RPG driven? And I think there was a little bit of misconception going into it. And when I actually started the game, I was like, oh, snap, this is just like Dark Souls. This is just like Bloodborne. And there is that I think some gamers will get out there. They're like, this is the hot game right now. Everybody's talking about it. I want to try it out. And then they play it for an hour and they instantly die to the first boss. They instantly die destroyed 5 more times to the next boss. And they're like, why do I want to play this game?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of disconnect on the, and I mean, just not to go on a tangent, but like Call of Duty went through that. Man.
This is your platform on it. Go for it.
Call of Duty went through that phase, I'd say probably about like 10 years ago, like right before Modern Warfare 4 was pretty skill-based driven. So like you could log on and you could play Modern Warfare 4 and you might get creamed, and you might, if you're good, you're going to win. But you start to, like, Advanced Warfare came around and all these other games, and they added stuff into the game that allowed bad players to be good. Added noob tubes that would destroy you. They added easy to attain score streaks, and they changed it from kill streaks to score streaks so you could attain it without actually, getting the amount of kills. So it made the game more accessible to other players. And I think that's something some players look for. They look for that accessibility, and they like to be able to progress in the story without actually putting in the work for it. But From Software makes you put in the work for the game.
Yeah, I think there's room, for... There really probably isn't that much room for FromSoft type games. Like, I think that these games, in order to be as good as they are, they have to be difficult, but also in order to be as difficult as they are, they have to be really, really well balanced. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can even imagine how many people they had playtesting this thing and playtesting it like later on and just like on with different builds and all this different stuff. I mean, it's taken them, what, about 4 years to make this game, which is a little bit longer, I guess. I think a 3-year period is what we would expect for most games. But like, I can't even imagine how difficult it was to make this game kind of thread the needle of difficulty and quality. It's astounding to me.
Okay. Now here's me playing devil's advocate. You're saying it's like the people testing it to make it well balanced. I'm saying it's not well balanced. It's the fact is, you mess up, you make it more difficult than need be, and you just leave that level. Like well balanced, it means that the average person wouldn't be ripping out their like teeth in order to try to to chew through to this. Like this is meant for the this has that ego of this is for hardcore gamers, and therefore if you're not willing to be hardcore enough, this isn't for you, and so go back to your baby games. I'm like, no, this game is broken. I mean, it's meant to be really brutal, and if you're masochistic, then yeah, you go in for the pain, but it does have that great reward at the end. You feel achieved because you fucking did something that was really tough.
So you're saying that like I mean,
It's not well balanced.
It's too difficult, and it kind of tricks you into thinking that it's better than it is because it's more difficult than really it needs to be.
You get the same high from doing a Mario Maker level that someone did some bunch of bullshit to, and you're like, yeah, I did it because I
or playing Cuphead or something, a game like that's notoriously hard. Yeah, I understand your point. Though for me, the whole like playing video games was a way to pass time, to something that I enjoyed doing during my downtime. It would make the hours go by. Like right before Elden Ring came out, I put in a ungodly amount of time on a Civilization 6 because it had that level of success for everything you did. You built a new building, you had a feeling of success, and Elden Ring has that feeling of success for every boss that you defeat. I mean, other games, you beat a boss or you beat a level and it's just like, okay, the story's progressed. There was nothing to that. But Elden Ring, you all of a sudden unclench your butt, you take a deep breath, you have a little bit of sweat dripping down, and you're like, oh my,
stop sweating.
Your palms stop sweating. You're like, finally, I beat them. And that's exciting. But I think the point Nick was trying to make, like, it's balanced in terms of like the not difficulty level, but like the mechanics of the game, right?
So I was listening to a podcast a while ago, and they were talking about Sekiro, and this is prior to me playing it. And one of the people on there, like, they were all talking about how difficult it was. One of them was having a pretty easy time because he's really good at parrying, and another one was doing pretty good, but still was really hard. But like the third person on there, she was like, I don't know if I can do this. She was like, I don't know if I'm physically good enough at games to be able to beat this. And I thought it was like really, I was like, that's a stupid thing to say. Of course you could. Like, you've played other games and you could get through it eventually. But like once I started to play it, I was like, I mean, I know I could beat this, but there is that, but like more than any other game I've ever played with Sekiro, it was like maybe I can't. Like, maybe I physically can't do this. And I think that, so like that to me is too far. Like, that was just, Sekiro is just too far to me. It's still a great game. People love it. And I mean, and I did get satisfaction out of it. I think this pulls that back. I think I said it on the podcast, I think yesterday, Joe, so sorry. But I think this is FromSoft going, okay, Sekiro was a bridge too far. It was too hard, and we're pulling it back now. And it's because to me it's easier. But then again, I don't have much room to talk because I haven't really bumped up against very many of the bosses yet.
I know Josh had mentioned, like, talking to him, he had mentioned like these bosses aren't that hard. He's a Dark Souls completionist and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's a connoisseur though.
He's a connoisseur of Dark Souls, and I was like, just there's some bosses in there you're gonna struggle with a little bit. Like, just give it some time. So I think there's an aspect of Elden Ring that encompasses it all.
Yeah.
All right. See, I was gonna say if you're looking for like a more what I'd call well balanced game, I would honestly say when it comes to fighting bosses or things of this nature, the Monster Hunter world was actually a way better example because in that game, it there's a lot of similar. If you think about it, there's a lot of similar crossovers between how the combat system, as far as parrying, blocking, rolling, they encompass a lot of that, but it is a lot more accessible. It's still really hard for people who aren't familiar with it. Uh, but someone who comes from the Souls games, they're like, yeah, this isn't a problem. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
not. But you're also used to much. Um,
I mean,
you're used to that, level. But for the average person, that is still challenge. But more people can easily get accessible into it, and then they end up having just as good of a time taking out that high level monster, or then you'll come up to the next thing, it'll murder your face, and then you're like, okay, now I have to prepare. But that in case it's a loot grind, which I don't find as satisfying. This is but this is something similar though. You're like, well, I might have to find a new spell, might have to find a new weapon, and also just level up either myself or the weapon, and then but also it's you can do a lot of it so long as you memorize the patterns. But same with Monster Hunter, so long as you memorize those patterns, you know what's coming. So I think that as a whole, that's why it's hard for me to swallow the this game being as I'll do this with almost any game that anyone puts up on a pedestal. Like I'll play
tear it
that
down.
advocate.
Fuck that
Yeah,
game.
I'll have to, dude. I mean, let's say Breath of the Wild. It wasn't that good.
Joe
I mean, it was
hates Breath of the Wild.
So I bought a Nintendo Switch for the explicit purpose of playing Breath of the Wild, and I will not lie, I played maybe a few hours of Breath of the Wild, and I was like, I don't see what the hype is. But
I have that sickness where I had to complete the game, and I did all the dungeons, and I did all the only thing I didn't pick up was all the poop.
So
And that game is
so
fucking trash.
to Joe's credit, he did play a shitload of that game. Kind of hate played it to prove that it's not like, or at least to show himself that
I was trying to find out what the hype was. I really wanted to find out what made it so great. The sandbox, the part that I can really find is the sandbox nature when you want to just mess around, and the people using the gravity and stuff like that, and being able to send themselves jettisoning into space essentially, and like across the map. That stuff was really cool. But a lot of the other stuff really wasn't, but people still sing the praises about that game. And like I said, I do like in the end of the day, Elden Ring is a phenomenal game. It's rock solid. It is the most approachable one for me that I've come across, and I do think it is the easiest one to pick up.
pick up and play.
Yeah. So I mean, but the thing is with Souls games, those who are fans of Souls games, not saying all of them, but I found a lot of them end up having a little more elitist mentality, and they're also the same people who are like, there shouldn't be an easy or normal or easy difficulty setting. It has to only stay with the one difficulty. And this is where I will say, you can play it. They can have their recommended difficulty. This is the way the developers intended it to be played. You can have it set up easier, or have certain accessibility options like, hey, there is a guided path, or there is a few more easier descriptions and stuff. You don't have to be so totalitarian on this one, because other people might want to enjoy the world, the art style, to see what it's all about, but they want to see it firsthand. They don't want to just watch some YouTuber play through everything. They would like to experience that themselves and be like, oh crap, that is a scary dude. Granted, at the end of the day, you can argue that because they played it on easy, that the final boss or Rodan wasn't as terrifying as he should have been. But for them for example, the people who go up to Monster Hunter, for them who don't play these games, they're like, that was still a great experience for them. I mean, because feelings it's relative. If you have a harder life, something small, something may not bother you, but if you have a really cherry life, that small thing might fucking devastate you.
See,
I know that with my kid, and if his toy breaks, he'll fucking, it's like his dog, like if your dog died or something like that, he's like, And I'm like, you're like, just dude, it's nothing. But you got to realize from their point of view, that is their world.
Yeah,
You know?
like I would agree with you. I think about like about the difficulty stuff. If there were like a wave of games that came out and tried to do that, but I really don't think there's like pretty much every other game has hard modes, medium modes, easy modes, and I think that's like the way 99% of games should be. And I think there's room for like one type of game, like the FromSoft game, to be all right. This is what we do.
Inaccessible.
Yeah.
But I would argue that a game like Elden Ring does have a difficulty. I would argue it does have a difficulty level. Like if you, like I said, if you get stuck on a boss that's too hard,
You can kind of level up.
you could
and
level
stuff.
up and go back and play that boss again later on, where it's essentially like a difficulty lower, you know? So, for example, when I face Melania, I see myself as, like the hard or legendary level when I faced her the first time. I went and leveled up a few more times, beat a few more optional bosses, came back and played her again, and I felt like the difficulty level dropped a little bit, and so on. Like the more you could power level, there's no limit. I guess your limit is 99 attribute points for each attribute. So, like if you want to get down to the lower difficulty, put in the work for it. But it's not a game that's you're gonna be able to go through and get all the aspects of very easily.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point.
Yeah.
this was a
This one amongst the others is, you're right about the level, but this follows the suit with the old JRPG or CRPG mentalities, where you could just grind your way to victory.
Yeah.
But then, does that not take away the joy of the game, where you're like, here I am just killing low mobs in order to, like, I know if I run through this dungeon, I did that a few times in one of the very first caves or whatever. There's the gargoyles.
Mhm.
It was the one with the boss with the cat statue.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I realized if I ran through and murdered all the gargoyles, I gained about 100 experience or runes. And so I literally farmed out and gained 2 levels that way early on. So that's, I'm like, yeah, this isn't fun. I mean, this is mandatory homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a
it,
reason why
it
those
kind
old
of just
RPGs come
depends.
out now, and they have a fast forward option, or they're trying to, because it's like respecting your time and the challenge of the game. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
There was an aspect of that towards the end of the game where it felt a little bit like homework, and that was just because I was trying to. It's not very forward in the game to get the alternate endings, because there's about 4 alternate endings to,
Oh wow. Okay.
or there might be like more than 4, but I know there's at least 3, 4 that you get achievements for. So
Okay.
I managed to stumble upon one of them accidentally, and it's not a game you're going to get 100% on the first try. You're going to have to play it through
Yeah.
3 times.
That'd be pretty hard to get 100%
And,
the first try.
I managed to stumble across, and I was trying to complete Ronnie's quest line, and that felt a little bit like homework. Completing that homework after the fact it was just like, all right, go to this area. I'm searching around this underground area. I just want to get through this. I just want to go to bed tonight and stuff like that. But it was always like, get to the next point. But I mean, now that I've started it again, that quest line is spanned out across the whole game, and it's not all conjumbled up. And I kind of see the merit there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like it just depends on your tolerance level, and I mean by the audience score or the user score. Yeah, a lot of people just are not. They think it's all right, but a lot of people are not. Okay with the way that it is laid out. But yeah. Anyway, so I think that's kind of we've hit on pretty much every major aspect of Elden Ring for the time being. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
all right, I'll hit this off.
Okay.
So I do think the game is actually a really good game. It's not for everyone, as you mentioned before, Devin. That it doesn't have the narrative laid out for you. So if you want something like that to have more of a drive, then that isn't it's not there. You'll have to go hunting for yourself. You'll have to read all the descriptions, and for me, I don't have the time and I don't care to read everything. So I'm like, I read a few of those items. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm not going to care about the rest of this. So and that's a knock. That's my personal knock against it is when you have to do lore videos to get the bulk of the stuff. I'm like it. That's where I find it's missing. I do think though that generally this is a game that everyone should. If you're ever wondering what these games are like, this is probably the best one to pick up. And if you're like I said, if you're tepid, you're like, I'm not sure. Do watch a tutorial video. I kind of wish I did beforehand. I'm a stubborn gamer, and I was just like, I went into it, like, all right, I know the bare bones basics of these things. Let me go ahead and bang my head against this. But if I watched a simple video or two, it would have made my life a whole lot easier. And like, I think that is the easy mode, or that is the easier difficulty setting.
YouTube.
Do a little do a little visual homework, make your life easier, save yourself time, because time is more precious than anything.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful game. I mean, it's one of the only games I've ever actually taken screenshots on my Xbox with. Certain areas of the game just have an amazing. It's very well put together.
It's beautiful in places. There's just like some of the vistas, like the clouds that they have going on, or the trees,
the landscapes, the background.
I think I mentioned that yesterday in the podcast, and I think that's why that's one of the things is this game is so much more enjoyable to me than the other Souls games, because like the architecture was amazing in those games, and that has that gothic aesthetic, but it was just like Gears of War. After a while, it just becomes all one shade and it's all kind of bland. And so that's why this game, I really gave it props for that.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
And besides that, I mean, it's a beautiful game. I feel like it's a accomplishment to complete it, and I really enjoyed that. I do think it is the game to beat moving forward, at least for this year. And I know that it will be an impact on future development of RPGs. Me personally, I love the lore. I love the, diving into it. My first playthrough, when you start a game like this, the names kind of run together. Like you immediately, in your entry video, they mention all the shard bearers. They mention Radon. They mention Godric. They mention the guy that you meet in the round table hold. They mention Gideon, all-knowing, and Fia, the mother of death, or the companion of death. And you don't know who the heck those people are. You're just reading. You're just like, this is the entry video. I'm forgetting every one of these names. It's like being introduced to a new group of friends. You're going to forget all their names in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But my second playthrough, I had just put 80 hours or near 100 hours into the first playthrough. So I've heard these names multiple times. I could put a face to the name. And the second playthrough, I'm really starting to capture a lot more of that lore. So it's there. It just takes some time to absorb.
Yeah.
Question for you, real quick. So since you played through the entire game, what the hell do you think George R.R. Martin did for this thing? Because honestly, I haven't gotten any feel from it being like, oh, this is totally his touch on this, because the rest of it just feels, I don't know. What do you think he attributed to it?
I've read that he was a little bit limited by the developers on his contributions to the game. I think the main aspect, and it's from a joking perspective, is JRM are the letters of most of the main characters in the game. Like Radon, Godric, Margit, Melania.
GRM. Okay, yeah.
GRM,
yeah.
George R. Martin's initials. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what he really contributed. This still has the same.
I heard from someone else saying the same thing, saying like, yeah, it's the naming conventions. It's just they all sound relatively similar, like those period piece names where the family will have the same. It's that Boromir, like Lord of the Rings. Their names are all somewhat similar. So that's what I heard as a joke. So I didn't hear about the correlation that their initials are either JR or M.
I saw it on a meme today. I follow the Reddit subpage for Elden Ring, and I saw that one on there, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I don't think he contributed a whole lot. I think the main thing it does is we're a generation of nerds that watched his TV show, and
it's definitely. I mean, I don't say definitely, but to me it seems like like a selling point.
Yeah.
Like it's just a thing on the front of the box or the back of the box to get people to buy it. So I kind of doubt he really had too much to do with it. But I would be curious to know exactly how much. I think that'd be interesting if we could find that out.
Yeah, I think it helps to put the name on the box. Like, you know, I know a complaint of previous Elden Ring games was not Elden Ring, Dark Souls games was the lack of story driven. So I think that was a selling point. Like, hey, we brought in George R. Martin to build out our story.
We're gonna give you a story this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there. It's a beautiful game. I suggest playing, and like you said, I do suggest, you know, reading a little bit before the game. Like, there's tons of online guides, like things you should know starting out in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't waste the first 5 hours of the game trying to kill the front boss and die every time to him, and not knowing you could just simply walk around the dude.
Yeah. I know I'm going to be playing this game probably for the rest of the year because I'm not going to have enough time to devote to it to like reach the 100-hour, you know, mark like you did so quickly. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a spectacular game, and it's definitely an accomplishment. But you know, like we'll see. Hopefully, something else great will come out this year too.
Oh, wait. One last thing, guys. What did you name your characters? I mean, do you have a go-to name whenever you name a character in game? Because my first one was always, my samurai was just the same thing. I name all my characters, but like, so it's always Simon Maxwell is a character that a name that I stuck around with since high school. But then my second one, since I'm like he's just going to be not Gandalf. So that is him. He's just not Gandalf.
First name not, last name Gandalf. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
How about you?
Mine is, I go pretty similar on every RPG. I'm always gonna do the same name, and that's Venom. My gamer tag's Darth Venom. Venom's my favorite, you know, Marvel character. So every one of my characters is gonna be Venom to some degree.
I went with I think it was Erstool. Just like I don't know, some kind of name like that. And then I don't even really remember it because like I haven't seen the name again, or actually looked for the name again.
It doesn't really
really matter.
Yeah,
but anyway, I was like Erstool Erstool the Brave or something like that. I don't know. But yeah.
My second character was Carnage. I like to do a kind of a theme. So Venom, Carnage, and you know, if I make another one and so on.
Yeah.
I will say that for me, it's more fun to start with a fresh character instead of doing the rollover with your previous character.
The New Game Plus.
Because I started the New Game Plus and I was just running through it so fast because my character was so over leveled. So like I was able to kill, you know, Godric. I could basically just run through the whole game in probably like 20 hours with my character. But I didn't want to do that. It kind of takes away the fun aspect that is what made Elden Ring so great for me.
Yeah, it's kind of a reward for like, hey, you already did all this, and now you can go through it and just see it at whatever pace you want.
Yeah,
you know, I guess it's kind of just for that. But yeah, anyway, so I think that is going to do it for us here. Thank you for watching. Devin, thanks for coming and sharing your breadth of knowledge about this. Whenever I heard how much you had played of it, I was like, dang, I got to get him on the podcast because, I mean, like, can't waste that. But yeah, anyway, so thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time. All right, bye.
Thanks.
Take it easy.